But I always pray, Lord, don't let this pain go to waste. Use it for your glory.
Wow.
And he hears that. He
Wow.
hears that.
Get your mind tight right from the start, and then make sure it aligns with your heart. Get your mind tight right from the start, and then make sure it aligns with your heart. Let's get down to business. Dun, 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 dun. Let's get down. Yeah, get the bank done. Dun, dun, yeah.
There we go. Welcome to the Branding Collaborative Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Wall. Today is March 1st, 2023. And on the Branding Collaborative Podcast, we talk all things mindset, heart set, and skill set, because those things are the things that make the difference when it comes to your personal brand. We recognize that it's the people behind the business that actually make up the brand. And so today, I'm really happy to announce our guest, Dame Precious Proscovia, and she holds the title of ROC, RN, FIP. You're going to hear a little bit more about all those titles later on. But I'm going to go through a few things because you have a great write-up here. Precious is the ambassador, CEO, and founder of the Precious Kids Foundation. We're going to be talking a lot about the Precious Kids Foundation today. Proscovia, or Precious, as many fondly call her, is a global child advocate, a neuroscience nurse, and a financial literacy coach. The founder of the Precious Kids Foundation, Proscovia strategically combines her expertise to serve humanity. I just love that, to serve humanity, including using her recent knighthood as a dame. So we're going to ask you a little bit about that as well. Drawing from her life experiences of personal tragedies and from over 10 years experience of caring for orphans, Proscovia spearheads massive medical mission camps, treating thousands and providing free, rarely accessible medical care to those in rural, underserved communities of Uganda and across Africa. So today, I am very happy to just welcome you to the stage here at the Branding Collaborative. Thank you very much, Dame Precious.
Thank you.
And you're a friend of mine. You're a business colleague. We have some things that we're discussing and trying to do to really help the orphans over in Uganda and across Africa. And I'm just very, very excited to have you here. So as a matter of fact, I'm going to be bumping you up into probably our first aired episode, just so that people can really understand the urgency behind the missions that you currently have in place, and that they're able to help you in some way. So just to kind of start things out, to kind of calm and ease into this conversation, tell the viewers and the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yes. Thank you. First of all, I honor you. I thank you so much for the opportunity. I have been called many names. That one of them that I'm very passionate to be called is Madam Precious. And that is because the orphanage centers that we work with in Uganda, I've done that since 2006. I've had the privilege of taking care of orphans from different areas in Uganda. I am born and raised in Uganda, and I've been in the US for about, I want to say 22 years now, since 99. So half of my life has been here. And because of the opportunity I got to come here, I was able to study. And I became a neuroscience nurse, also behavior psychology. So for almost like about 17 years now. And one thing I've learned, especially being in this country, that when opportunity comes, you pick it up.
Absolutely.
I remember one of the mentors I've had in life who uses the acronym POOR, and it means POOR says passing over opportunities repeatedly. So the blessing of being in this country, America, the land of the free, is for me to find or receive the different opportunities that have come in. When opportunity to study came up, I studied and became a neuroscience nurse. When the opportunity came up for me to go back to Uganda and serve, I was able to go back, and now we take doctors and nurses and even entrepreneurs to serve in the different communities. So in a nutshell, who I am is basically a person who has delighted in picking up opportunities to serve humanity. That is one of the blessings that I've enjoyed in life.
Wow, that is powerful. I mean, I don't think there's any better way to introduce yourself than that in itself. You said since 2006, correct? You've been?
Yes,
Okay.
taking care of orphans since 2006.
You said 23 years, half of your life. I mean, I was going to peg you around 30 years old, but that's for another conversation.
You know what? Yeah.
You mentioned a couple times the title NeuroScience Nurse.
Yes.
For even myself and maybe others that don't understand all the different dynamics of the medical field, tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, neuroscience nurse is basically the study of how your brain influences the way you operate. Sometimes your brain can be, if we look at it from a medical perspective, your brain can have some form of an injury, and that injury makes you behave differently and makes you even have the physical manifestation differently. For example, if it is a stroke and it brings a different physical manifestation, if it is a neurotransmission part of it, it makes your brain act differently. So some transmitters are not transmitted correctly. If it's a behavior side of it, it makes your behavior become different. So as a neuroscience nurse, we get to study how your brain affects influences your output as a person. And then how can we support you so that your brain is supported to help you impact or have a different way of outcome in your life, not become a victim of what the brain is doing to you, but be empowered by that brain actually, because there are ways that you can empower your brain to work in your favor. So that's what we do.
Wow, that's fascinating. So, I mean, that's a specialty. That's a niche that you
It
do
is.
not hear about every day. And
Yes.
have you found, nothing when I talk to entrepreneurs on a regular basis, and including my own journey, do you find that nothing, first of all, happens by accident. So, one skill set or one career leads you into the next, and you're usually able to carry some of that forward. So when you think of everything you just described, do you still use some of those fundamentals in how you deal with people today?
It's interesting you asked that. Today I was teaching in a class, and it's all about empowering people to make different choices despite what life has given them. So whether it is in my line of work as a neuroscience nurse or behavior psychology, whether it is in my line of work as Madam Precious in the nonprofit work we do, or whether it's in my line of work as a coach, I get to use the different aspects of my expertise to be able to empower people so that one, you get to recognize where are you in life and what have you been handed over in life, what opportunities have come or have you missed, or what lemons have come in. That way you're able to recognize them, be self-aware, and actually use them for your own benefit completely.
Wow.
So
We could host an entire show. We could actually host an entire boot camp around around just that topic in itself. I love that. We will circle back around and talk about that further. I think there's, when it comes to the world of branding, right? A lot of times people think it's just on the surface. It's the color scheme, the logo. It's the way you present yourself through marketing material, etc. And those things are important. But I always talk about the three major pillars, and that's really understanding, who you are, like the brand you. And so we talk a lot about mindset. We talk about heart set as being the fundamentals, like basically knowing who you are. So in line with what you're talking about, knowing exactly, what makes you tick, and then what are your passions and your purpose, your heart set, the things that actually drive you. So in focusing on those two things first, it's super critical before we ever get into skill set and all the other things that go along with branding. But and it made me think about that when you just talked about that in general.
And that's exactly what it is. In branding, you're putting a stamp of who you are out in public so that whenever somebody sees your specific brand, they know, oh, that has the stamp of Robert on it. And who is Robert? What does Robert stand for? What is, everything. So branding actually is a self-actualization that you eventually project onto whoever gets to see or get to know about you.
Oh,
Definitely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Very powerful. I should have you create some of my monologue because that's, I love that. So, in telling us about this initial transition, I know that when I first met you, we met out in California a few years
Yes.
ago, right? It was right,
Yes.
it was pre, pandemic. And
Yes.
that's when all of us would get together on stage and rub shoulders really close
And hug.
so, and we're getting back there. We're back there again. So, but anyways, yeah, that's where I had met you, and I know one of the things. I mean, just your heart and your presence and that big smile definitely connected with me. But one of the things was really, again, your purpose, that mission, and you talked a lot about how you were transitioning from kind of that traditional nursing field, and you're using your skill set and your heart set to help and serve others. And I know a great deal of that has been with the Precious Kids Foundation.
Yes.
And so, can we talk about that for a moment? Tell me how you basically transitioned into there, and then we'll talk a little bit, we'll peel back some layers and talk about some of the things that you've accomplished since you started the Precious Kids Foundation. And then, of course, we're going to
Yes.
talk about some future things as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. When we started off, I started off with a passion. When people say, "Oh my God, how did you start this? How do you even do it?" and things like that, it started off with a passion. I had been in the U.S. for a few years at that time. So when I graduated from nursing in 2005, prior to that, I had had a passion, just something I just want to, especially go back and help orphans. That had been my passion. I grew up from a single mother's family. It was single mom, and she had 4 kids, and life was not necessarily the best all the time, but I will tell you for sure she did her best to make sure that we're well taken care of. So it brewed in me a desire to go back and help, even beyond, like, subconsciously. I didn't even know where it all started from. But next thing I know, in 2006, when an opportunity came, there was a leader from Sweden. He's from Uganda, but was living in Sweden at the time, and he needed help to take care of orphans in Uganda, and somebody who has some organizational skills and leadership skills. I was like, okay, I'll go. And I went and I visited. It was my first time to go back to Uganda, having migrated to the US. And so when that happened, I was in a national director for about 10 years. And we grew that orphanage center from a small city to bigger cities and different locations. And it just so happens that after I did that for about 10 years, and when life transitioned, because I had some different events that happened in my life where I had personal deaths that happened. My dad passing away in 2015, my auntie passing away same year, 3 months later, and then 6 months later, my grandmother passing away. All those kept brewing in me something. To be honest with you, I can't say that, oh, I knew what this is going to lead into, but it kept piling up onto the different passions I had. Having taken care of orphans at that time for like almost 10 years at the time, I just did it out of passion, but never necessarily out of a personal loss. And I've always had this prayer in my life when something happens to me. It is painful. And I'm like, Lord, this is really painful. And I want to get the devil back. But I always pray, Lord, don't let this pain go to waste. Use it for your glory.
Wow.
And he hears that. He
Wow.
hears that.
That can you say that one more time? Just say it one more time for the people
Yes.
listening.
When things happen to me that are not good and they're painful, I'm like, Lord, don't let this pain go to waste. Use it for your glory. And he does that even beyond what we can know, because that happened in 2015. And then after I got healed and got back on my feet, in 2017, we started Precious Kids Foundation. And it was different in a way that now we want to actually go out and help people from a preventative measure. because remember, now I am a neuroscience nurse for so many years at that time, and they train us that prevention is better than cure. So when the prayer turned around to be answered in that way in 2018, that's when I had this desire in me to say, we're going to do something about it. No more is it going to be, let's take care of orphans and provide them with schools and tuition or maybe skills development or things like that. Let's do something about it. Now I went back to my neuroscience background where they teach us prevention is better than cure. So then in April, we started taking doctors and nurses and started, like, the desire I had was like, we're going to do something about it. We're going to build tents, put up tents and bring doctors, and anybody who wants help, medical help, is going to come and get that help free of charge. So all that pain that was in there was fueled into doing something about it. And that something about it was, we're going to do medical camps. And it was definitely divinely guided, I'll tell you that for sure. Because then all I would say, hey, you a doctor? You want to come with us? We're going to do a medical camp. Hi, you want to come with us? Let's do. So then we started putting people together and we went. And that was in 2018, our very first medical camp. And within that simple decision, that very simple, just joking decision, we treated almost 4,700 patients, delivered babies, we did dental extractions, and
I'm getting goosebumps, by the way. I know some people call them chill bumps or whatever, but I'm feeling them over here because that is amazing. What a such a big purpose kind of hidden in that pain and some of the things that you had endured earlier in life.
Yes.
And so you said that was and I'm looking at a few of the notes that you had sent over. 2018, 4,700 patients.
Yes.
And that include delivering babies. It include performing over 1,000 dental extractions.
Yes.
Wow. So and we're going to get into that in a moment about how, people can help, physically and financially with some of these efforts. But please tell me, this would be very, in my opinion, useful for the listeners. And that is the fact that, as an entrepreneur, I know that limiting beliefs is one of the biggest things that holds us back. And so that must have been a big fear mechanism. I mean, you must have endured something when you decided to take action, and you probably didn't have it all in place, right? Did you have all the finances and all of the medications ready and lined up, right? So
no.
So how did all of that come together? I mean, I just think that's fascinating how things, come together based on a leap of faith.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned entrepreneurship, because in the definition of entrepreneurs is you actually get to do something that will make you work so many hours, does not promise a benefit right away, does not even guarantee anything, but you're moving on a step of faith that you have this belief in you that is going to work out.
Absolutely.
And guess what? That's exactly what I had. I'm like, this is going to work out. I feel in my spirit it's going to work out. And I emptied my savings account. I emptied my 401k and I took all the money out and I was like, we're going to do something about it. We're going to do so. So I'm glad you mentioned entrepreneurship right before you say this, because that's a step of faith many entrepreneurs go out to do. All the savings account, every retirement account, and some of them borrow money and things like that. Because what? You're stepping out in faith over something you believe is going to work out. And that's what exactly I did. And the results of it was amazing.
Wow.
And when I sat down, it's so interesting that among the kids that were born, one of them was born by a C-section. And it so happened that she was, I think, 24 years old. She did not know that she was pregnant. And she kept saying, what's happening? She's growing and growing. And when we had the medical camp, she showed up to find out, why is my stomach growing like this? Right. That means she's not going for any prenatal care. She doesn't even have any preparation. And next thing you know, she goes in labor. we found out during the medical camp, thankfully, when we bring the doctors around, we have different specialties of doctors that come in, and we set up like a buffet of doctors, and anybody can go from one doctor to another. So when one doctor said, oh no, this is not just a swelling, because she thought it's a tumor, there's a baby in there. And so they took her to a different section that deals with babies. And it just so happened that the baby, because she hasn't had any prenatal care, the baby was a breech. So when the labor started, she could push, but nothing was coming out and everything. So without machines or anything to detect that the baby is actually in breech, they found out she's pushing, nothing is happening. And hours later, they come to me and said, Madam Precious, we need to take this baby, this lady to a hospital because we're going to lose both of them. Now, that was important because by the time they come and ask for permission to take the lady into hospital, you have to say yes to it because you're the one going to pay for the hospital bill.
Oh, yeah. In fact, other countries I've been to, I know you have to pay in advance before you can actually receive care. So, wow. And so
we
where
said
did
yes
that,
and shut the
where did that
circuit.
come from? Did that come from Madam Precious, or what happened?
Yeah, it did. And out of it's one of those things, once you say we're going to do something about it, you even don't count the cost. All you're counting is the impact that's going to come out of that. So we said, okay, we need to do, it's almost like we need to do this. We're not going to think twice about it because there's a lady in labor, there's a life at stake, and a baby needs to be born. So they ended up doing a C-section. Thankfully, we were able to pay for it. She went and did the C-section, and then she came out. And do you know, the doctor came back to me and said, do you know she was going to become a statistic?
Oh, my goodness. Not just the child, her.
Both of them were going to become statistics because the statistics you always hear, and I'm going to say from Uganda because that's where I'm from, or other African countries, the statistics you hear, oh, she died during childbirth. And most of them, if they don't have the money, they give birth in banana plantations or in a garden somewhere without necessarily any material resources to help. Even the cutting of the umbilical cord. Mm-hmm. If you don't have the razor or the scissors or anything, and anything that will help support, or if they tear during a birth, then who's going to sew it up? So when you hear the statistics, they've died during childbirth. When that doctor came back and said that, he went back to the memories of all the people I've heard dying prematurely, preventable death. So it gave me a different perspective of, oh, wow, just like an entrepreneur when they say, oh, I'm glad I made the choice to do this because now another life has been saved.
Absolutely. And, when you think of preventative care, it's not just the physical medical application side of it, it's the education, right? And so I would imagine you spend a ton of your time and resources educating them how to care for themselves when you're not there, because you can only do so much, right?
Exactly.
And I know that all of those things are very exhausting when it comes to resources, finances, etc., right? And
it does.
And the things that we take for granted, just in your example, your story alone, we just take these things for granted. I won't mention who, but, like someone very close to me just had a child not too long ago. And, they're complaining about that $300 medical bill. But the thing is, they were taken care of through that whole process, all of the prenatal care, the vitamins, I don't know, they must have had maybe a dozen different scans and ultrasounds to check on the baby along the way. And so we just take those things for granted here in the United States when it comes to the fact that our preventative care has saved millions and millions of lives that other countries just don't benefit from, right?
When you say the preventative care, do you know the life expectancy of somebody in Uganda or Africa?
No.
They give you 46. In Uganda, there's an age, and other African countries it's different. But you have a range between 46 years old and 58 years old. But when you compare that to the life expectancy in other countries, it is not the same. And it goes back to, have we received preventative care? Have we received ability to go, like you mentioned, get up and walk into a clinic or a hospital, and you get the treatment you need right away, and the payment will come later. Right? So without worrying where, and that's why the mandate that we have in the medical camps, never charge any single person any dollar at all, so that the person doesn't have a dilemma of, oh, do I go to the medical help go get the medical help I need, or do I buy food? Do I get the surgical procedure I need, or make sure I pay rent?
I never even
right?
thought about it that way. And so then it eliminates that hard decision of,
Totally.
do I take care of myself or do I feed my family, right? They can still focus
Exactly.
on the ability to care for family while they're getting and receiving some type of medical care, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
that's fantastic.
Because
So
I remember in 2019 we did another medical camp, because this then has created a cascade of many other medical camps.
Right.
In 2019 we went and did a medical camp, treated 5,000 patients in 3 days. But guess what? Within that time, the people we treated, we had other cases where something that they came for treatment for needed advanced care. So we needed to actually go even a step further, take them to ICU, get them immediate dialysis, or get an ambulance to a village 5 hours away, get another person and take them, get the chemotherapy that they need. Because I remember in 2019, we met a 12-year-old that had testicular cancer. His name is Silva. And when I go back to getting the funding you need to get the care, and you have the dilemma of, do I get the medical care or not? Silva he had testicular cancer. He saw something was wrong and he tried to go get some help. And they told him, oh, you need what is now in the US dollars an equivalent to $194. He's an orphan. He comes from deep in the village. He doesn't have his older relative, the only older relative is a brother who is 17 years old, and he's mentally challenged. So even the village came together and they sold some chicken and some belongings that they had to get the money, but it wasn't even enough. So guess what? By the time he went, he deteriorated and the cancer grew up to stage 4. By the time they actually called Precious Kids Foundation, because whenever a child is in any medical need, they just remember, oopsie, Precious Kids Foundation, can you help us? The child needs help. And so by the time they called us, that he was in stage 4, and I don't know how much graphic I can get on here because I want to be careful not to say big things, but he was swollen to almost the size of a cantaloupe.
oh my goodness.
And it had burst open and it had maggots and pus and all that. That is something that could have been prevented had he had that $194 many months before, when he actually noticed something was wrong. So by the time we took him on, we took the ambulance, and if he was in a room like this, it would be smelling like it was that bad. And so the wounds were open. So by the time we took him on and gave him the chemotherapy, he lived for another 1 year and 3 months, but sadly he passed because it had spread all over his body. But my desire was to make sure we get him the care he needed free of charge as much as possible. So if as we continue going on preventative care, is to say, can we prevent any others from even going to stage 4 and catch it early? And without the fear of where's the money for the treatment coming from. So even he did pass away a year and 3 months later. However, this time he had the wound had gone back to normal size, and he had different surgical procedures, and he could now walk. He knew he was loved, because like you mentioned earlier, some of these things are not tangible. But knowing a person knows that, oh, somebody else loves me, oh, I'm not going to die alone, or something like that. There's that intangible that you cannot quantify by the money.
I mean, that in itself is part of that healing process. You were able to put him in a state that he started to see the miracle actually in process and working.
Yes.
You know, regardless of how it ended, he was able to have some type of comfort and care in his life. And wow, what a powerful testimony. And you know, you talked about being too graphic. Here's the thing: that's the reality of this, right? Our
Yes.
story, and we talk a lot about, you know, the stories of our life or what make up the threads in the fabric of our future. And so that's very powerful. And obviously, for those that are just listening to the podcast, you know, they're not going to have the honor of seeing some tears come out of my eyes, but those that catch the video on social media, wow, just so powerful. And you must be just a very strong-hearted person to witness some of the things. And I've seen some of your posts and the content, and where you're holding these young children that end up passing later on. But wow, I salute you and all of the other healthcare workers, and just those that are just there, just caring, and those that aren't there, the ones that are, you know, on the, you know, not necessarily the front line, but they're praying, and they're providing resources financially. So just with that,
And that's exactly.
go ahead.
Now, I was gonna say, and without dismissing what you just mentioned, it's not even about being brave. It's not even about being. I consider it the grace of God to have been put in a position to do something about it. I always look at it like that. So some people may not physically be able to go, or I even have people who are like, I'm sorry, I can't even go there. I'm sorry, I can't even physically go. I can't even see that. I have friends of mine, even people who are donors to the Kids Foundation, and they're like, no, I cannot see the pictures of what you're showing me. It's too much. And I'm like, the grace of God is there to give different people different graces. The grace I have is to do something about it. And I go to Uganda about 3 to 5 times a year. I literally fly there so that we physically go and do something about it. And like you mentioned, others may not go, but they donate. But in that same way of doing it, they're doing something about it.
Wow, you know, this is going to keep resonating with me. I'm putting this down because I'm gonna wear it. I'm gonna make a T-shirt out of this. But don't let this pain go to waste. Your quote, and absolutely beautiful, because actually that pain isn't just, you know, the physical suffering. It could even be like for those that are deciding, should I donate, you know, this $100 that I have, or this $500, or should I help by providing this resource? I mean, sometimes when people have to give freely, there's this attachment, right? There's still some kind of pain attached, but when we can think of it with all things in that context, don't let this go to waste. Don't let this financial donation go to waste. Don't let this pain go to waste. Don't let my sweat, my blood, my efforts go to waste. And I just love that. It's a motto I'm going to live going forward. You'll probably hear me say it, and I promise I won't claim it that it was my words. But so
You know what's interesting? When people say, "Oh, I can't do anything about it," or anything, do you know just like $100 can actually provide a hernia repair surgery?
wow.
For surgical procedure, $100. And I keep saying, anybody can get to do something about it. It takes little. When you see how people work together, collective effort, little by little makes a difference. $100 alone can come from one person, or it can be like 3 people coming together to put together $100, and that's a hernia repair for somebody.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So different aspects.
Yeah, I had seen somewhere on your site that $1,000 can treat 10 patients. I mean, that's,
Yes.
you know, like you said, it's that $100. It's much more powerful. It goes a lot further, right? In your
Yes.
efforts. So
Yes.
in kind of transition of talking about that, what are some of the projects that you have going on right now? And then, you know, we'll talk a little bit about how people can help in those projects.
Sure. Right now, our focus is we're going to go to Uganda in April. A month from now, we're going to do another medical camp. Now, as we do more and more, people get to understand, oh, I can actually get healthcare and free medical help and all that. So they travel miles. I'm talking about 50 miles, 100 miles to come over to the medical camps. So then we're expecting, the last time we did the medical camp and treated 5,000 patients, now they've said, oh no, people are coming more. So brace yourself for almost 10,000 people to come through for 3 days. We do them for 3 days and let people come in. We never turn away anybody, even if they come in like however late they come in. When the camp is there, we open it up and make sure we treat them. So our greatest project or need that we have right now is we're going to go April 8th. I'm flying out April 4th to do another medical camp. And we're going to treat as many as come to get the help that they need. And definitely with the free care we give, resources have to come from somewhere.
Okay.
We do bring in doctors from the US, but we also collaborate with doctors on ground so that if we bring in like 10, 15 doctors from the US, we have almost 100 doctors we collaborate and bring from the capital city, because most of our medical camps are in rural communities in the villages. So we get they volunteer from the capital city and they come over to the rural communities. Sometimes it's like 3 hours drive and things like that. They stay, we help them find a place to stay, and then they provide their care free of charge. So the collaboration of our donors here is met with the collaboration and volunteerism of the doctors there, so that together, that's when we can collectively say we treated how many patients? 5,000 patients, 10,000 patients. So our program right now is in April. I'm flying out April 4th. The medical camp is scheduled to be April 10, 11, and 12. And within that time is when the estimate of almost 10,000 people that we're going to be treating. And we do this about 3 to 5 times in a year, depending on the resources. So we could do it even more often, but of course, depending on the resources that come in.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, by the way, you must have snuck into my space here and you're reading my notes, right? Because the two things I always talk about is the brand, the personal brand behind the person. And I mean, the Precious Kids Foundation, you are the heart, the smile, you are the drive behind that brand without a doubt. And then the collaborative efforts of people in general, right? Collaboration.
Yes.
I'm really, really big about that. It's why it's in the name of the podcast. And I always believe that, as whether it's entrepreneurs, executives, I mean, anyone just even sitting at home that's retired that feels like they can help in some way. It's, you know, we can, through serving others, through our efforts of being able to collaborate, we can get somewhere quicker, right? We can help somebody. And when you talk about, was it Silva, right? That, I mean, if you would have just had that care a little bit earlier. And so I keep thinking about that. We can't necessarily save everyone, but let's just save another person. Let's save another person. So I love that. Let's talk about, for the sake of time, the financial piece. What's the best way that people can connect to you immediately and provide some type of, financial donation or, something to be able to help in these efforts?
Beautiful. Well, thank you for that opportunity. When you go to our website, preciouskidsfoundation.org, we have a donation site there. Right now, we have specifically created a medical camp, sponsor a medical camp, .preciouskidsfoundation.org. Somebody can go there and they get to choose to donate any amount. The ability for a person may say, oh, I can't afford 1,000, I can't afford 10,000, but you can collectively have maybe in your business, and we say, hey, let's make a project. This is March 1st. Within a month, can we collect $10,000 and it's going to go towards this? So the collective effort that comes together, it could be one person, it could be a business that says, oh, our business is going to donate $10,000. Or our business is going to come together and create a project. You know how people say they're going to run for a cause?
Yes, absolutely.
So something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, again, that comes back to collaboration. This is not just a one-time effort for those that are
No.
listening. This is the ability that if even somebody said today that I'm going to put together something within my business to where a certain percentage is donated over the next year or whatever it may be, right? Every
Yes.
little single thing, or if it's just that person again that's sitting at home that's holding tight onto that $50 or $100 and they can help in any way, they have the ability to connect directly to your website and they can donate
Yes.
that way as well. And just so that people kind of understand the I guess the dynamics behind it. Are you a nonprofit organization?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Yes, in the US, we are 501c for tax purposes. We give tax donation receipt. We are 501c here. And also for purposes of, remember the financial literacy educator in me,
Yes.
for even greater purposes, we have something called charitable giving, or it's called charity lead annuity trust, where we help people that want to give on a like a long term and say, hey, you know what? I want to give, and this is how, because you're already a 501c in the US, I want to donate this amount, and that amount you can give gifts now for things that have actually, and you will receive the donation tax deduction now for donations you have not even given for 10, 15 years down the road. So that's something that I can introduce any listener that would be like, oh, I want to know about that. So between the regular donation of every month and we give you the donation receipt, there is even a longer one that the IRS allows you to take a tax deduction now for gifts you have not given, but you're promising to give 5, 10, 15 years down the road.
Wow, that is amazing.
It's called that. It's called a CLAT.
That is amazing, and I won't even try to explain to people how to do that. You're the expert behind that. And so one of the things that I do want people to understand is that I will be in all of our broadcasts, we will include some links so that people can actually get in
Yes.
touch with you. We have the ability to share this message. Even at a minimum, if you just know someone else that could potentially help
Yes.
serve this cause, please share the podcast, the videos, any type of posts that are attached to this so that we can just spread this message to an amazing cause. I've looked through it. I've seen the pictures. I've seen the videos of you hands-on helping
Yes.
these beautiful children. I mean, quite honestly,
Yes.
they're angels just waiting for some assistance. And so
Yes, that's
it
true.
definitely moves the heart. In addition to that, you obviously talked about some creative things that you can do with setting up trusts and other things. I know that your skill set also is in financial literacy. And so we will include a bio with some other ways that people can connect with you. And quite frankly, I mean, the whole purpose behind the Branding Collaborative is also so that it's not just inclusive. We want people to be able to share this message and to get you in front of others as well. So if you've heard
Yes.
this and it resonates and you want Madam Precious onto your show as well, if you want to interview her for some further things or actually just connect with her directly to see how you
Yes.
can build, as you even said, your own kind of project from the
Yes.
ground up, then absolutely, I'm an advocate of people being able to do that, and I will continue to share in that cause as well. I know that we're going to be
you
doing
know-
some things for you, so we're also going to
Yes.
be putting together a magazine around the Precious Kids Foundation, and it'll have all the other different ways that you can donate and become part of these projects and to learn more, right, from you, because
yes,
you have so much to offer that we couldn't even talk about everything here on the one show.
Yes.
We'll have you back on again in the future, but I wanted to make sure that regardless of our own launch date, that we kind of moved you ahead. And you know what?
Thank
I mean, other people are just going to have to wait. I don't know, I don't know what to tell you here. But anyways,
Thank
I truly do appreciate your time. Is there any other ways that people can reach and connect with you directly? You talked about the website. Is there, do they have the ability to email you, call you,
Yes.
ways of connecting with you on social media?
Yes, social media, Facebook is Precious Proscovia, and of course, minus looking at other Precious Proscovia is out there. Once you look at the picture and you see the bio of who I am, then you know that's the correct Facebook. On email, you can get me Precious Proscovia. Proscovia is Proscovia. So preciousproscovia@gmail.com. That's another way that they can get in touch. Or you can send me a text message, and it's 918-313-2492.
Excellent. And again, I'll make sure that all those things are connected into the content as well. Thank you again for your time. We're going to go out here with the song that, again, it's one of our guests that's going to be coming on soon. Ado, he wrote a little piece for us. So we're going to go out with that. Thank you so much for your time, Precious. And I look forward to being able to serve and help you and actually spread the message so that others can do the same. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. I love that.
Get your mind tight right from the start, and then make sure it aligns with your heart. Get your mind tight right from the start, and then make sure it aligns with your heart. Let's get down to business.